Ryo, the time for my visit draws near. We are making significant preparations in the north. We will unite forces and take back what is ours soon. I know of your imminent attack on Silverhearth. Blessed are your people. I pray you prevail. We will speak again shortly, hopefully in person.
Come, Edmund. Thank you for seeing me. Galeran Milteg sent me. He said you'd offer us sanctuary.
That's right. We're willing to offer you sanctuary within our walls. By protection of the Templar Knights, you and your son will both be safe here.
You dreamt about your mother again tonight, didn't you?
Yeah, she mentioned Galeran again. Did you also dream about your mother?
No, Lydia this evening. Edmund, I promise I'll take you to meet Galeran. We'll get to the bottom of these dreams together.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 14th episode of the Medieval Rimworld series, where our attack team move into battle in what would later be known as the first true battle in the Morgan Resistance. Ryo would make the call for the dragons to fire blast the first enemy we spotted, eliminating the first defender we saw. We wanted to come in fast, hoping it might frighten some of the bandits with our attacks. In response though, they would send out a massive fighting force to defend the city, going on the offensive. We would form a line to defend as snow poured down from the sky. We will hold our ground here by any means necessary, through magic and fire. We would charge the enemy as they began to weaken. There would be no mercy for anybody today, as we would continue to push forward, finishing off the last of their attack squad. This was almost seeming too easy for us, as we would hack and slash multiple enemies down at once. But we hadn't seen anything yet. Ryo would use his valiant charge into one of the defensive towers, looking to kill one of their archers, but they began to run. He would hold this position while the others looked to breach the door, but while they were moving forward, the archer in his panic ran out front, being met by Kryos's icy fangs and the sweet release of death. While our group were preparing to breach the fort, one bandit was hiding behind a defense tower, using some magic. We noticed her and fireballed her off into oblivion. We will liberate this fortress for the Templar Kingdoms. Our resolve is extremely strong to do so. Nora would patch Platt up while we wait to break down the wall. Before long we were in, everybody would start pushing into the city looking for enemies. Edmund would find a single defender that he would execute swiftly with a stab to the head. Chalcedon and Constantine would start to look in a nearby house, knocking down the door, entering and exploring the rooms, only finding one of the bandits' dire boars that they'd have to slaughter. Meanwhile, outside, one of the defense tower guards emerged, only to be vanquished by Ryo and our dragons. Now that we've secured the northern part of the city, we'll use this house as a base of operations, setting down a few medical spots to begin healing and caring for our wounded companions. We'll also use this break in fighting to have a bite to eat inside this nice warm house. But for Ryo and his dragon Apostus, there would be no rest, searching the middle of the town for more bandits, finding several. As they go about their search for bandits, yes, I chose the name Apostus myself. There were too many good suggestions from you guys, I honestly couldn't choose just one of your ideas. I want to say thank you to any of you who sent in name suggestions. I'm sure there'll be more dragons or people to name in this series, so please don't be discouraged and keep sending in names. There will be more opportunities. But back to the battle at hand. After defeating the bandits surrounding the town centre, Apostus would enter the tavern, finding resistance from another pair of bandits, probably unable to attack us earlier because of their alcohol-fueled stupor. But at this point they were anything but slow, putting up quite the fight before finally we had claimed the tavern. It was time for some well-deserved rest for these two after exploring the rest of the inn. Now the rest of the group would set their sights on the defences of the palace. As the squad arrived out the front of the inn, Nora would return fire from one of their defenders, while Constantine would swoop in, melee fighting the other while we'd advance. Ahsoka was hit from the north going down, but we'd be there to pick her back up. We couldn't let them go unpunished with this though, shooting arrows and fire at her attacker who was stationed in the palace gate defense towers. One of these archers would just escape as Cryus had joined the fight, blasting fire at him as our people moved to safety inside the new house we'd taken. We'd begin treating some of our wounded while the dragons finish off a tower guard they'd spotted. Smashing at the door and breaching it, knocking the bandit out the window of the tower, they'd follow him outside the wall, attacking and ending his miserable life with relative ease. With him finished off, we'd begin to regroup and start treating the wounds of some of our injured, but it seems in the south part of the base there's some movement. Something isn't quite right here. As Danders moved to feed one of our wounded, he'd be ambushed by several combatants who had coordinated an attack in the centre of the town. Thankfully, several of our people were within earshot, coming to assist with weapons drawn. The ground of this city once again knew blood as multiple more bandits were downed by our forces. We would struggle against one of these women. She seemed to be some sort of leader, but with her taken down and us finishing off one of the other ones that was still standing, we would once again be safe in this city. We'll now have to assess our next move. After this ambush, we think there may still be people in some of these buildings. They may be hiding out, they may try to attack us, we're not sure. This might have turned into a siege of sorts. But we don't want this to turn into a siege, we want to take everybody down. So while we wait for people to heal, Ryo would take it upon himself to make sure those holding out wouldn't starve, entering each building one by one, finishing off any remaining bandits. The first stop was the library, which would be cleared out relatively quickly. Thankfully, we weren't kicked out for being too loud. Moving on, we would search through some houses in the town blacksmith, thankfully finding no more bandits lurking around. We suspect that all the people in this area were cleared out in their ambush on us. The search was a bit more boring, so I'll try to keep it quick. We would move over the bakery, once again finding nobody, until we went next door to the small brewery, where a man named Glug was found. He was swiftly executed, despite his very fitting name. In the house next door, another bandit was found and dealt with quickly by Apostas, bringing us to the final two houses, one of which was empty, the other was a mage who Ryo would put down after taking multiple stab wounds. And thus we had taken the commoner section of Silverhearth. Now plans would need to be made for our assault on the palace, where undoubtedly there would be several powerful guards and some sort of warlord. After taking a little bit of time to get everybody to fully heal, we would line up outside the palace gates where Ryo would give a rousing speech about how this day would go down as the first strike in the Morgan resistance. And as he finished his inspiring words, the dragons would let loose a powerful combined blast to weaken the outer steel gate. Our warriors would move in to dismantle the gate, hoping that our display had struck fear into the hearts of those inside. With the first gate coming down, the second would become the focus, that one being also destroyed quite swiftly, revealing a courtyard with several brigands, one who looked to have already died of hypothermia, and of course those still alive would be joining her shortly. Between the spirit wolves and our blades, it would be over quite quick. There was one more bandit to emerge from the castle as we moved in, although they, as expected, would meet the same fate, taking a spear through the chest from Valor. We would now prepare to breach the door into the throne room. Apostas would prepare, charging a great fireball to blast at the door, and off it went. As the smoke cleared from his mighty attack, we would surround the entrance to prevent anyone escaping. Charging in, we would eliminate the barbarian lord ruling here, as well as his two guards. Things got a little messy with so many of us trying to attack. Their leader would fall, and any of our group that were taken down would be tended to quickly. With Ryo being taken down in this assault, Valor would take charge, focusing on the door to the right, finding one last brigand, lassoing her, and with a quick sweep, we'd capture Silverhearth. After all the other rooms had been cleared and found to be empty, we could finally breathe a heavy sigh of relief. The final place in the entirety of the city to check was the cathedral, which Ryo would inspect once healed. This place was abandoned. Thankfully it wasn't ransacked either, but its relic may have been taken. Ryo would take a moment in the cathedral to pay his respects, hoping one day this chapel might once again nourish the spirits of our people. Now that everything had died down, a day later, a meeting was held.
Our first battle of the Resistance has been a great success. I am proud to have fought beside all of you, but now we must discuss the next step. I plan on taking Danders and Edmund to meet with Galeran. This is my final decision. Valor will now share our plan.
Thanks, Ryo. We've been preparing this for some time. The rest of us will remain here to keep the city safe, awaiting their return. Once their meeting is complete, we will all journey home together.
What happens if we get attacked and need to retreat back home?
Don't worry about that, Ernest. We've accounted for every scenario.
I once again want to thank you all. We'll have a toast this evening and a small feast. And then tomorrow morning we ride out.
The next day, just as dusk was on the horizon, several large groups of brigands arrived at Silverhearth. It's almost as though they had prior knowledge of our movements and plans. While cleaning outside, Nora would hear movement outside the wall. Running inside, alerting Ernest, then quickly making it to the wall, bringing anyone in the area with them to assist, not sure of what lurks outside. They would quickly realise this is a massive assault, returning fire at our enemies with arrows and lightning, while they circled the castle, looking for an entrance. Duplat was still injured, making this timing very poor. Ahsoka too was still not 100%. Their mages were really turning up the heat outside, forcing us to retreat to one of our other towers, only to be hit with a fireball that would knock Ernest down. For now, we will retreat and attempt to regroup. Valor would begin searching for the others so we could rally and defend together, finding Ahsoka who would join him in the search. Chalcedon and Constantine were making a stand in the western tower, shooting fireballs and attempting to lasso people in. Meanwhile, in the east, Bjorn wasn't holding up so well, being downed by a paladin that had made it through our embrasures. Things were beginning to look somewhat dire. It might be best that we retreat into the palace. Valor, finding Chalcedon and Constantine, would head back, while Ahsoka decided to search for Bjorn. Running through the empty town, she would begin searching and calling his name. Coming to the first tower, she would enter but was lassoed outside. There were 5 bandits waiting for her, so she decided to attempt to flee, but in the process, was murdered. Could this be the end for these characters? Will the barbarians win today? I cannot be sure just yet, but we surely won't be going down without a fight. Ernest was back up, so will attempt to do some damage with his magic, but with their overwhelming numbers all around the wall, we would once again retreat. Not too long later, the walls had been breached in the south. Fountains were being stolen, and a massive group was moving into the town. Platt and Chalcedon would move to the defensive towers, trying to shoot them in what was quickly looking like a losing battle. The city was being ransacked. Valor would come to assist as Platt was being lassoed out into the carnage. And although they were killing several, it was little consolation. And just as all hope began to look lost on this bleak winter's night in Silverhearth, expecting that the end of our plight may come soon, a horn of war broke through the sound of raging barbarians. It was so chilling that many of them began to flee. And then, he appeared. Yes, indeed, Mart has returned with a band of Templars from our outposts at the perfect time. They would cut off the fleeing raiders, saving Bjorn in the process. The war cry had also invigorated Valor, who would chase down Platt to capture, recovering our friend. And entering through a hole where our raid had first started, Mart and his guards would strut through the city, unafraid, saving Bjorn as his troops took up defensive positions to prevent any further attacks. And not too long later, as the final barbarian forces were pushed back, Silverhearth was officially ours. But this certainly didn't come without loss. Nora would weep for Ahsoka, comforted by Valor, who would give her the time she needed. Something I never really mentioned too was that Edmund had a massive crush on Ahsoka. If you look back at the cinematics, I was always trying to put them together. I was hoping they'd be our next couple, but Rimworld always throws curveballs in like this. But with everything that's transpired today, our people would clear the city, deciding to return home, knowing that the plan they'd put in place for the others accounted for them potentially having to retreat. And as their journey home began, the trek to meet Kalaran was coming to an end. And that's where I'll leave you all for today. This video I expect to be the best one that I've made to date. It took a long time to put the city of Silverhearth together and film all the battles, so I really hope you all enjoyed this one. It took a lot of production time to make. Regardless, I want to thank you all once again for all of the support on the videos. It's just tremendous. I really want to thank all of you for watching and supporting. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Looks like it's a dead end up ahead. This must be the place.
Okay, but what do we do now? Do we just wait?
Halt. Put down your weapons. There's no need for a fight. Come inside, my friends, and don't mind the dragons. They're friendly. We have much to discuss.